on a lot of the movies that I hadn't seen.
Yeah, it was one of those movies that I think it was critically acclaimed, but I don't think a lot of people went to see it.
Maybe that had to do with the timing of it, because that came out at the height of, the Freddy Kruegers and Jason, and even some of those later shittier Halloween sequels that we were kind of clowning on yesterday.
Yeah.
That's kind of like where horror was in the 80s, and when you have, a movie that's not necessarily a horror movie, but more of a thriller, it probably didn't get as widely seen because it wasn't a real slasher movie like what was dominating the market at the time.
Yeah, I bet you're probably absolutely correct, because it was kind of like obscure compared to those franchises.
Yeah. I mean, we spoke about The Hitcher a number of years ago, and I know that wasn't a huge hit either.
As are most of the genre films that we adore today didn't do well. As we talked about, like The Thing, people said it was so violent that it was like pornography, practically, like shit like that.
And it's a huge cult movie, but I mean, ask a lot of people, they'll probably tell you that's John Carpenter's masterpiece.
I had an interesting conversation with one of my buddy's friends. She's my friend now, but a mutual coworker who's recently become my friend. Shout out to Amanda, but her boyfriend recently showed her Carpenter's The Thing, and I asked her what she thought, thinking that she was gonna love it, and she told me that she could see why it was a staple in pop culture, but that she thought it was a little slow, and it didn't keep her attention the way that she wanted it to. And I just thought that was so weird to me, because you can say a lot about that movie, but boring is not a word I would use ever to describe.
No, it starts out like fairly quickly with the monster effect, but I think as to her complaints, and everyone is entitled to their opinion, but I think her complaint as to it was slow is part of the beauty of the movie, is it kind of takes that time to ratchet up the tension and the paranoia as to, okay, who among us is the creature?
Yeah.
And I mean, there's that great scene where Kurt Russell's testing the blood. That's just, it takes its time reaching that jump scare, but it's well earned because you're just on the edge of your seat waiting for that moment to happen, and it seems like it's going to, and then it doesn't, and it seems like it's going to, and it doesn't. He keeps testing, and then when you get to the part where he tests the infected blood, it's a great jump scare.
Agreed. That's funny that you bring up that one particular scene, because that's the thing she said that stood out to her. She was like, I loved that, but everything else was like whatever to me.
Yeah. Well, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but
yeah,
her opinion is probably wrong.
Also, I think it's important for me to say she's like only 24, so that could have a lot to do with it. The YouTube generation.
Something needs to happen every 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Did you say that about like that Michael Bay, that last Michael Bay movie? You're like, I couldn't follow what was going on in the first 10 minutes of the movie because it kept cutting every 2 seconds.
Oh, the Six Underground, yeah.
Yeah.
I wish that I didn't know that Michael Bay made that, because then I probably wouldn't have shut it off so fast. But yeah, no, it was just like anxiety, and not in the good way, if that makes sense.
It's hard to follow action when you continually cut.
Yep.
That's one thing that I don't like about movies that do that, is I can't follow what's going on in this scene because there's so much cutting that if you just, left the camera on and only made a few cuts here and there, it would make a hell of a lot more sense.
What were we originally talking about? Oh yeah. So going back to The Stepfather, check it out. I enjoyed it immensely. I've been slowly kind of trying to go back and watch some of the more classic films that I don't remember quite as well. Mm-hmm. Similar to what you were doing with the was Turner Classic Movies. Over this, these months that we're kind of in limbo. Mm-hmm. It's been fun, making a schedule or creating things to do in this uncertain time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Checking out old stuff that you either don't remember or hadn't gotten a chance to see, whether it's, 10, 15, 20 years ago, or whether it was, before you were even born. Mm-hmm. A lot of times it's pretty interesting. Not only to, see a movie that you haven't seen in a while or have only heard of but never seen, but also kind of see, like, how that was made or, like, where the film industry was at that point in time that the film was made and how different things are now in terms of, letting the camera just sit on a scene and not cut so much, or, what's going on in the movie. Have you ever seen the take of Pelham 1, 2, 3, the original with Walter Matthau?
Yes.
Yeah, like it's kind of that 70s New York that isn't around anymore. Much like Taxi Driver, or we spoke last year about Dog Day Afternoon, which is one of my favorite movies. Yeah,
where it looks like it felt dangerous.
Yeah. The mid-70s New York, and it's one of those movies. So you watch that, and it's kind of like, oh, like this was New York then, and it's changed a whole hell of a lot.
Have you ever seen? We recently did. I think it was in October. We did an episode on Basket Case. Have you ever seen that one?
Oh, I don't think so. I'm familiar with it, but I don't think I have seen it.
It's a wild movie, but the reason why I bring it up is because I believe it was shot in New York, and it just feels so grimy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Where you're just concerned for the crew.
Even The Warriors is kind of like that.
Yeah.
It was kind of, from that period of time where New York was, kind of dangerous.
Speaking about The Warriors real quick, what do you I think it's the director's cut that has like the comic book in segues. Does that bother you?
Yeah, I think it's a little cheesy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that might be the version I have on Blu-ray, which I didn't know when I bought it on Blu-ray years ago.
Is that I think that's the only one that's out. Is there an original cut?
I don't know. I'm guessing it's kind of like the George Lucas thing now, where it's like this new cut of the movie is the only cut that'll ever be seen from here on out. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's what it was with The Warriors. I wish I had known that. I wouldn't have bought it, but I found that out later. But it's a bummer. But when it's on like HBO or Cinemax or something, they play the original cut.
I'm going to have to try to see if I can find one, or even an old VHS would be awesome.
You could probably look up on eBay and find an older, like, DVD or VHS. Probably even on Amazon, too. They still sell DVDs on Amazon. Good rec.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
And now for the movie focus of the week.
First of all, let's talk about what did you watch in the movie theater in those 2.5 months or so before everything just completely shut down. What did you see that you really enjoyed, or that you liked? There's one I know we both saw and we both loved.
Yeah, is that The Lodge?
That's The Lodge.
Oh man, I was waiting for that for so long, and I remember watching.
Yeah, because I think it played at Sundance like a year or two earlier.
Yeah, I think
And I remember like reading a review and seeing like an early trailer for it and being like, whoa, like that movie looks great, and that kind of slow burn existential horror is my new shit now. And I was really excited for it, and it kind of took a while to come out. I think it was over a year. I think it played Sundance in 2019.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. But yes, The Lodge.
Yeah, The Lodge is awesome. That came out, for us, was it in February?
In February. That was the last movie I remember watching in the theater. That was probably 2 weeks before everything went tits up.
The Lodge, man. It's definitely a movie that's not going to be for everyone. As you said, it's full of existential horror, which is it makes it a divisive film. But for me, I very much like you love this type of film, and you know it was worth the wait. You know, for as long as it took for it to come out and us to see it. I'm glad that this was one of the films that I got to see in the theater setting. I remember the not many. I think it might have been the first day that it came out. I went, and there wasn't a lot of people in the theater. Maybe like 3 or 4 other people, and they were dead quiet. You know, they didn't mess up. Like some people will mess up the experience for you, and you end up having to go see it again because they kind of taint the movie that first time around. But that didn't happen this time, and I loved it. And it was crazy seeing Alicia Silverstone. Even though her character's kind of short-lived, she did a really good job, in my opinion.
Yeah, now that was crazy because she pops up on screen in the beginning of the movie, and I'm trying to place who this is. I'm like, oh, she looks familiar, but I'm not quite sure. And I don't think I was sure until like the credits at the end, and I was like, holy shit, that was Alicia Silverstone. Like, she doesn't look super different or anything. She's obviously older. Clueless was 25 years ago. But I could not place her, and I think part of that is because she hasn't really been on screen a whole lot, in the last, decade maybe?
Yeah, like past 2000, I can't really think of anything substantial.
I know that she's in a couple other projects. I know she had a TV show in the early 2000s for a while, but like I haven't seen her like in anything mainstream for a long time. And it was crazy that I was sitting there thinking, who is this woman? Because I cannot figure it out, but she looks so familiar. And without spoiling too much, like it's a pretty whiplash moment too.
Yeah, things go south, and really it's the catalyst of the whole movie.
Yeah, that's kind of like what sets off the rest of the plot. As we were talking about last week, it's a movie that takes place at Christmas time. It's in a pretty remote, very snowy location, and I really dug that. It's got that specter of like the cult, because Riley Keough, who's great in the movie, she used to be in a cult, and then was kind of deprogrammed, and the guy who's her current boyfriend was he was like writing a book or writing about her experience, and that's how they knew each other.
And ultimately, they kind of fell in love, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but she was a former cult member, and she was, had escaped that life and was trying to make a new life, but that as goes throughout the movie and is kind of creepy the way that they use the cult leaders' sermons, kind of sprinkling them throughout as kind of this disembodied voice that's talking throughout certain scenes in the movie, like very creepy. And then it's got like you kind of slowly descend into her madness, or what she perceives as her madness. And I don't want to say too much about it. I know a year-end show we usually talk